The early hours in London held that heavy silence that only 3 in the morning can bring. In the Kensington district, an imposing mansion rose between high walls and perfectly manicured gardens. Inside, Robert Miller walked through the dark corridors, his footsteps echoing on the cold marble. Another sleepless night. Another night when his brilliant mind, the one that built a technology empire valued in billions, refused to rest. He descended the stairs towards the kitchen, seeking a glass of water. Perhaps routine would help. Perhaps the silence would calm him. But as he approached the industrial kitchen, a metallic sound broke the quietness of the house. Clattering dishes, running water, hurried movements. Robert frowned. Who would be awake at that hour? Upon entering the kitchen, the scene he found left him momentarily paralyzed. Under the yellowish light of the fixtures, a teenager was bent over the gigantic sink, washing an endless mountain of plates, glasses, and silver cutlery. These were the remnants of the corporate dinner he had hosted the previous night for international investors. The girl had her brown hair pulled back in a messy bun, and her hands moved in slow motion, as if each gesture cost immense effort. Clara, Mrs. Lucy's daughter, his trusted housekeeper for over 10 years. Robert watched her for a few seconds before speaking. The girl's hands were red, swollen, with visible marks of recent burns caused by the hot water. She wore an apron too large for her slender frame and had deep, dark circles under her young eyes. "Clara?" Robert's voice cut through the silence, making the teenager turn abruptly, almost dropping a porcelain platter. "Mr. Miller," she widened her eyes, clearly startled. I didn't know you were awake." Robert approached slowly, analyzing the situation. Clara should be sleeping. She had school the next morning. He knew that because Mrs. Lucy always spoke proudly of her daughter's dedication to her studies. "What are you doing here at this hour? Where is your mother?" The question made Clara swallow hard. She averted her gaze, focusing again on the sink full of dishes. "My mother she has a bad flu, sir. Very bad. She needs to rest so she doesn't lose her job. I'm just helping out a bit, it's nothing much." But it was too much. Robert had not reached the top of the technology market by being naive. He could read people better than financial statements, and what he saw on Clara's face was not the natural concern of a daughter caring for her mother with the flu. It was fear. A deep, desperate fear, the kind that freezes blood in your veins. "Clara, look at me." He used the firm but gentle tone he reserved for delicate moments. "Is your mother all right?" "Yes, sir. It's just the flu. She'll be back at work tomorrow, I promise." The lie was stamped on every nervous word, but Robert decided not to press. At least not yet. He looked around the kitchen. In the corner, leaning against the wall, was Clara's old faded school backpack slightly open. From within it, something golden reflected the light. Robert approached discreetly while the girl returned to washing dishes with renewed vigor, as if she wanted to finish quickly and escape the embarrassing situation. It was an academic honor cord, golden, gleaming, new, the kind of recognition only the best students received. Beside it, partially visible, was an old black-and-white photograph. Robert gently pulled out the photo to get a better look. A uniformed soldier, a discreet smile, an upright posture. The emblem on the uniform made his heart quicken for a second, but he kept his reaction to himself. "Clara." He turned his attention back to the girl. "It's past 3 in the morning. Go to sleep. I'll take care of this." "But, sir, I need to finish." "That's an order." Robert used a tone that brooked no argument. "Go home, rest. We'll talk tomorrow." Clara hesitated, clearly torn between obedience and the desperation to complete the task. Finally, she nodded, wiped her hands on her apron and picked up her backpack. As she passed Robert, she kept her eyes down. "Thank you, sir. Sorry for the trouble." Robert watched her leave through the back door which led to the service area and then to the small annex apartment where Mrs. Lucy and Clara lived. When the door closed, he remained standing there, looking at the sink full of dishes that gleamed under the artificial light. Something was very wrong. He returned to his bedroom, but sleep remained distant. Lying on the king-size bed, staring at the high ceiling, Robert couldn't get the image of those red, swollen hands. the fear etched on Clara's face and the photo of the soldier in the backpack out of his mind. That emblem. He knew that emblem. At 6 in the morning, when the first rays of sun began to invade the room through the heavy curtains, Robert picked up the phone and called his personal assistant, Andrew, a discreet and efficient man who had worked with him for 15 years. "Andrew, I need you to do a full background check for me. Discreet, but thorough." "Of course, Mr. Miller. On whom?" "Mrs. Lucy, my housekeeper, and her daughter, Clara. I want to know everything. Financial situation, health, the girl's school record, where they work, what they do, everything." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Andrew knew Robert well enough not to question him, but the surprise was evident in the silence. "Understood. How much time do I have?" "As fast as possible. Today, if you can manage it." "I'll start right away." Robert hung up and finally got out of bed. He took a long, hot shower, put on one of his tailored suits, and went down for breakfast. The table was impeccably set, as always. Fresh orange juice, artfully cut fruit, warm bread, homemade jam. But Mrs. Lucy was nowhere in sight. In her place, one of the other staff members, Joanna, served coffee. "Good morning, Joanna. Where is Mrs. Lucy?" "Good morning, Mr. Miller. Mrs. Lucy called early saying she's ill. She asked me to let you know she'll be back tomorrow." Ill, of course. Robert nodded and began to eat mechanically, his mind already elsewhere. At 2 in the afternoon, his cell phone rang. It was Andrew. "Mr. Miller, I've completed the check. Are you at the office?" "I am. Come straight up to my office." 20 minutes later, Andrew entered the glass-walled office on the top floor of the skyscraper that housed Robert's company headquarters. He carried a black folder under his arm and had a serious expression on his face. Robert dismissed his secretary and closed the door. "Tell me." Andrew opened the folder and placed the documents on the glass table. "Mrs. Lucy doesn't have the flu, sir. She has a complex autoimmune disease, systemic lupus erythematosus, to be specific. It's serious and in an advanced stage." Robert felt his stomach clench. "The medications she needs are not covered by the basic health insurance plan we offer employees. The full treatment costs almost £4,000 a month, practically her entire salary. £4,000, an amount that for Robert was less than he spent on an executive dinner. For Mrs. Lucy, it was the choice between living or eating. And Clara?" Andrew turned the page, revealing school documents. "Here's where the story gets more striking. Clara isn't just a good student, Mr. Miller. She's the top student in London's entire state school system. Exceptional performance in all subjects. She earned a full scholarship and was accepted into the Young Leadership Program at University College London." Robert felt a mixture of relief and pride. At least the girl had a bright future. "She had," Andrew corrected, and the tone of his voice made Robert look up from the documents. "Clara dropped out of classes 3 weeks ago. She missed the final university application deadline. According to school records, she simply stopped showing up without explanation." Robert felt as if a bucket of ice water had been thrown over him. "What do you mean she dropped out? Why?" "I investigated further, sir. Clara is working 2 jobs in addition to covering her mother's duties here at the mansion. During the early hours, she does the heavy work that Mrs. Lucy can no longer manage. At night, from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., she works at a 24-hour diner in the city centre near Trafalgar Square." Robert closed his eyes. Those red, swollen hands, the exhaustion on her face, the fear in her eyes. It all made sense now. She's using the money from both jobs to buy her mother's medication and pay the bills. They're 3 months behind on rent for the annex apartment. The landlord has already threatened eviction. Wait, Robert opened his eyes. What rent? The annex apartment is part of the property. Mrs. Lucy lives there as part of the employment agreement. Andrew adjusted his glasses, uncomfortable. Actually, sir, technically that space isn't listed as employee housing in the official documents. The previous owner charged a symbolic rent. When you bought the mansion 5 years ago, you maintained the same informal agreement but never formalized it. Robert cursed under his breath. Another administrative oversight, another loophole that allowed people to take advantage of the situation. And Mrs. Lucy, proud and discreet as she always was, never mentioned any difficulties. "There's one more thing, Mr. Miller." Andrew hesitated before pulling out the last photo from the folder. It was an enlarged copy of the photograph Robert had seen in Clara's backpack, the uniformed soldier, smiling discreetly. "I identified the man in the photo. He is Sergeant Anthony Stone, Clara's grandfather. He served on a UN peacekeeping mission in Haiti in the 70s. Robert took the photo with hands that trembled slightly. The battalion emblem was clear now, enlarged. His heart quickened. "The same battalion where your brother served, sir." Andrew's words echoed in the silent room. Robert stared at the photo for long minutes. His older brother, Edward, was only 23 when he left for that mission. It was 1976. Edward was full of dreams, idealistic, believed he could make a difference in the world. Robert was just 15 at the time and idolized his brother. He wanted to be like him, courageous and determined. Edward never returned. An accident during a rescue operation. "Quick," they said. "Without suffering," they assured. But for the family, especially for Robert's mother, Mrs. Helen, it was the end of the world. She fell into a deep, almost catatonic depression. She stopped eating, speaking, living. Doctors didn't know what to do. Medications didn't help. Therapy didn't work. Until the letters started to arrive. Handwritten letters on simple paper with firm and careful penmanship. Letters from Sergeant Anthony Stone, who served alongside Edward. He wrote to Mrs. Helen for months, perhaps an entire year. He told stories about Edward, about his courage, about how he helped other soldiers, about how he made everyone laugh even in the most difficult situations. He described the last day in respectful detail, assuring her that Edward hadn't suffered, that it was quick, that he was a hero until the end. And most importantly, the sergeant wrote something that saved Mrs. Helen, that Edward didn't pass away alone, that he was there holding the young man's hand, speaking words of comfort, ensuring his family would be informed with care and respect. The sergeant treated Edward not as just another fallen soldier, but as a brother. Those letters brought Mrs. Helen back to life. She started eating again, getting out of bed, finding purpose in honoring her son's memory. Robert's family never personally knew Sergeant Anthony, but his mother treasured every letter. She passed away a few years ago, peacefully holding the stack of yellowed letters. And now, decades later, Robert discovered that the daughter and granddaughter of that extraordinary man were working for him, and they were silently destroying themselves while he slept on Italian silk sheets, unaware of anything. "Andrew, I need their exact address. Now." "It's right here, sir," Andrew pointed to the paper. "Acacia Street, number 127, apartment 3, Notting Hill." Robert grabbed his car keys. "Cancel my schedule for the rest of the day, and tomorrow too." "Sir, you have a meeting with the Japanese investors tomorrow at 9. "Cancel it." Robert was already at the door. "Tell them I had a family emergency. I'm not lying." 20 minutes later, Robert parked his silver Mercedes in front of a modest 3-story building in Notting Hill. The paint was peeling. Some windows had broken panes patched with tape, and there was no doorman at the entrance. He climbed the narrow stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door of apartment 3. It took a few minutes for the door to open slowly. Mrs. Lucy appeared in the crack, and Robert had to control his expression of shock. The woman he saw every day, impeccably dressed, energetic and efficient, was almost unrecognizable. Too thin, pale skin, sunken eyes. She wore an old bathrobe and leaned against the doorframe as if she could barely stand. "Mr. Miller?" Her voice came out hoarse, surprised. What are you doing here?" "May I come in, Mrs. Lucy?" She hesitated, clearly embarrassed, but finally opened the door. The apartment was tiny, a living room that also served as a kitchen, with an old sofa and a small TV. 2 doors, probably to a bedroom and a bathroom. Everything was clean, organized, but visibly poor. Robert saw medicine bottles on the coffee table. Many bottles. "Please sit down," Mrs. Lucy pointed to the sofa, but she herself remained standing, tense. "Mrs. Lucy, I came here because I discovered some things, and I need you to be honest with me." Her face immediately closed off, defensive. "I know you don't have the flu. I know about your health condition. I know about the medications, the overdue bills, and I know Clara dropped out of school to work." Mrs. Lucy closed her eyes, and tears began to roll silently down her face. She sat heavily on the sofa, as if her legs could no longer support her. "I wanted to tell you, Mr. Miller, but I was afraid of losing my job, of being seen as incapable, of not being able to support my daughter. I've always been strong. I've always managed everything. I didn't want to appear weak." "You are not weak, Mrs. Lucy. You are human, and you are ill. Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you ask for help?" "Pride," she answered simply, wiping her face with trembling hands. "Foolish pride and shame. You already do so much for us. You gave us a job, a place to live. I didn't want to be a further burden." Robert leaned forward, his voice firm but gentle. "Where is Clara now?" Mrs. Lucy looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost 5 in the afternoon. "She's at work, at the diner. She'll be there until 2 in the morning, as always." "Which diner?" "The corner diner, sir. It's on Oxford Street, corner of Trafalgar Square. Please don't go there. She'll be embarrassed. I've already talked to her. I told her she needs to go back to school, that I'll figure something out. But she doesn't listen to me. She's stubborn, sir, just like her grandfather." Hearing the mention of her grandfather, Robert felt it was time. "Mrs. Lucy, I need to tell you something. Something you might not know about your father and my family." She looked at him, confused. Robert took an old photograph from the inside pocket of his jacket, carefully protected by plastic. It was almost identical to the one Clara carried, but from a different angle. 2 uniformed men smiling at the camera. One of them was Sergeant Anthony Stone. The other was Edward Miller, Robert's brother. "Your father saved my mother, Mrs. Lucy. After my brother passed away on that mission, my mother fell into a deep depression. Doctors thought she wouldn't survive. Then your father started writing letters, for over a year. Letters about Edward, about who he was, about his last moments. Those letters brought my mother back to life." Mrs. Lucy held the photo with both hands, her eyes wide. Tears fell onto the protective plastic as she traced with her finger the face of the father who had passed away so long ago. "I didn't know." Her voice came out in a choked whisper. "Daddy never told me. He just said he'd helped some families during his service, but he never went into detail. He was discreet like that, always was. Your father was a hero, Mrs. Lucy, not just in war, but afterwards too. And I never got to thank him personally. When I finally had the means to look for him, I discovered he had already passed away. That was over 15 years ago." "He passed away when Clara was just 2 years old," Mrs. Lucy confirmed, still looking at the photo. "Heart problem. It was quick." Robert nodded, respecting the moment of silence that followed. "That's why I'm here, Mrs. Lucy. It's not charity. It's a debt that has been pending for 50 years. Your father helped my family when we needed it most. Now it's my turn." "But Mr. Miller, I can't—" "I'm not asking for permission," Robert interrupted, gently but firmly. "Tomorrow morning, you will be admitted to the London clinic. I already have a contact there, one of the country's best specialists in autoimmune diseases. He will personally take care of you. All costs on my account." "Sir, this is too much." "And Clara," Robert continued, ignoring the protest. "Clara will go back to school. My assistant will accompany her to regularize her situation, take the exams she missed, and recover her scholarship. I will use my contacts at the university to reverse the bureaucratic deadlines." Mrs. Lucy began to cry harder, covering her face with her hands. It was a cry of relief, of exhaustion, of accumulated gratitude. "But now I need to go get your daughter." Robert stood up. "Because if she's been working at that diner from 8 at night until 2 in the morning, she probably doesn't even know I'm here." "She'll resist, sir. Clara inherited her grandfather's stubbornness. Then she inherited the stubbornness of the right person." Robert smiled for the first time since he arrived. "Because I'm stubborn too. Stay here, rest, lock the door. I'll bring your daughter home." The corner diner was exactly the kind of establishment Robert had never entered in his life. Flickering neon lights, the smell of grease in the air, worn formica tables, a dirty counter where a few people drank reheated coffee. It was almost 8 in the evening, and business was moderate. Robert entered and stood in a corner, observing. Clara was there, wearing a yellow and brown uniform that was too big for her. She carried a heavy tray with plates of food, serving a table of 4 men who spoke loudly and laughed at jokes she clearly didn't find funny. One of them made a comment that Robert couldn't hear, but he saw Clara blush and quickly move away. For the next hour, Robert simply watched. He saw Clara being rudely called by the manager, a chubby man with a mustache, every time she took a few extra seconds to serve a table. He saw her stumble over her own feet from exhaustion. He saw the deep, dark circles under her eyes, the way she squinted as if she had a headache. It was clear the girl was at the absolute limit of her strength. Then it happened. Clara was carrying a particularly heavy tray full of plates with generous portions of food. She was coming from a table at the back and needed to cross the dining area to the kitchen. But halfway across, her legs gave way. She tried to balance herself, but the weight of the tray pulled her to the side. Everything happened in slow motion. The tray slipped from her hands, falling to the floor with a monumental crash. Plates shattered. Food spread across the floor. Cutlery flew in all directions. The noise was so loud that the entire diner stopped. Everyone looked. Clara stood there, paralyzed, looking at the disaster at her feet. Her hands trembled. Her face was white. The manager appeared immediately, red with anger. "Clara, what the devil have you done, girl?" I'm so sorry, Mr. Walter. I slipped." "Slipped? Slipped?" The man was practically shouting now. "That's £200 worth of food on the floor, not to mention the dishes. It's all coming out of your salary, do you hear me? All of it. But Mr. Walter, my salary isn't even enough for—" "Then it'll take 2 months to pay, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. You'll pay every last penny." Clara was starting to cry, and some customers averted their gaze, embarrassed. The manager continued shouting, pointing his finger in the girl's face. That's when Robert moved. He strode across the diner with long, firm steps, his imposing presence automatically making people clear a path. He stopped between Clara and the manager, taking his wallet from his pocket. "How much was the damage?" His voice was calm but imbued with an authority that immediately silenced the manager. "Who are you, sir?" "Someone who will pay for what she broke. How much was it?" The manager looked from Robert to Clara, confused. It was £200 for food, plus about 80 for the dishes. 300 then." Robert took out 6 £100 notes and placed them in the manager's hand. "It's paid, with a bonus for the inconvenience." "Mr. Miller." Clara finally recognized him, her eyes wide with surprise and shame. "What are you doing here?" "I came to get you." He turned to her, his expression softening. "Gather your things. You don't work here anymore." "But I need to." "No, you don't," Robert interrupted. "Mr. Walter, this is Clara's resignation. She won't be back tomorrow, nor ever again." The manager still held the notes, stunned. "But she has to give notice." "Consider the notice served, and pay her what she's owed." "She's not owed anything. She owes me money." "Not anymore. I paid. Now give me what she earned this week." The manager, intimidated by Robert's presence and the money he still held, grumbled but went to the till. He returned with some crumpled notes and handed them to Robert, who passed them to Clara. "Let's go." He gently placed his hand on the girl's shoulder. "Grab your things and let's leave." Clara was still in shock, but she obeyed. She went to the back, returned with a small backpack, and followed Robert to the door. When they left, the diner's embarrassed silence finally broke into speculative murmurs. Outside, in the cool night air, Clara stopped and looked at Robert. "You didn't have to do that, sir." "Yes, I did. Get in the car." The Mercedes was parked on the corner. Clara looked at the luxury vehicle, then at her own grease-stained clothes, and hesitated. "I'll get it dirty. I don't care. Get in." During the first few minutes of the drive, neither of them spoke. Robert drove carefully through the London traffic, while Clara looked out the window, clutching her backpack to her chest. Then he noticed her right hand was bleeding, a thin but deep cut, probably caused by a piece of broken dish when the tray fell. "You're hurt." Clara looked at her own hand, as if seeing it for the first time. "It's just a scratch." "It's not." Robert pulled the car over to the side of the road, turned on the interior light, and opened the glove compartment from which he took a complete first aid kit. "Give me your hand." Clara extended her hand, and Robert carefully cleaned the cut, using gauze and antiseptic. She winced in pain, but didn't complain. He applied a proper bandage, securing it with adhesive tape. "There. Change that tomorrow." The simple paternal gesture was too much for Clara. The barrier she had built around herself for weeks finally broke. She began to cry. Not a silent cry, but deep, desperate sobs that shook her entire small body. "I couldn't take it anymore." The words came out between sobs. "I couldn't take it anymore, Mr. Miller. I tried. I swear I tried, but it's too much. It's too heavy." Robert said nothing, just waited for her to vent. "My mother is dying." Clara continued, her voice breaking. "She says she's fine, but I see it. She's getting weaker every day, and the medications cost so much. So much. I thought if I worked more, if I slept less, I could do it. But I can't. I can't save my mother and have a future at the same time. So, I chose." "Chose what?" "I chose my mother." Clara wiped her face with the back of her good hand. "I threw away the university acceptance letter. I dropped out of classes. Because how could I go to University College London, study politics, have a career, while my mother wastes away without medication at home? How? What kind of daughter would I be?" Robert felt a tightness in his chest. That 17-year-old girl carried a burden that many adults couldn't bear. And she carried it in silence without asking for help, sacrificing her brilliant future for the person she loved. "Clara, you didn't have to choose. No one should have to make that choice. But I did, and I don't regret it. I'd rather be uneducated and have my mother alive than be educated and have lost her." "And what would your mother say if she knew you threw away your future for her?" Clara fell silent, staring at her own hands. "She'd be heartbroken," she finally admitted. "She always said I'd be the first in the family to get a university degree, that I'd make a difference in the world, that my grandfather would be proud. Then why do you think you have the right to take that away from her? The joy of seeing her daughter grow, graduate, succeed?" Clara looked at Robert with tear-filled eyes. "Because joy doesn't buy medicine, Mr. Miller. Reality is that cruel. But what if there was another way? What if you didn't have to choose?" "There isn't another way. I've already looked. I've tried social programs. I've tried funding. I've tried everything. There's no other way." "Yes, there is." Robert started driving again, resuming their route. "And you'll find out what it is when we get home." When they arrived at the apartment, Mrs. Lucy opened the door even before they knocked. She must have been waiting anxiously. Upon seeing her daughter, she pulled her into a tight embrace. "Clara, my daughter. Thank God." "Mom, what's happening? Why did Mr. Miller come to get me?" "Come in," Robert said. "We need to talk, all three of us." They sat in the small living room, Robert in the only armchair, Mrs. Lucy and Clara side by side on the sofa. The tension was palpable. "Clara, I know everything. I know you dropped out of school. I know about the 2 jobs. I know you're sacrificing your dreams to try and save your mother." Clara lowered her head, embarrassed. "But this ends now. Starting tomorrow, things will change. Your mother will be admitted to the London clinic. The best doctors will take care of her. All the medications she needs, all the treatments, everything paid for. And you, Clara, will go back to school." "Mr. Miller, I can't accept this." Clara raised her head, the family stubbornness shining in her eyes. "It's too much. We can't afford to pay. I'm not asking for payment." "Then it's charity, and I don't accept charity." "It's not charity." Robert leaned forward. "It's a debt." "What debt?" "We didn't know you before my mother started working at the mansion." "No, you don't know me. But I've known your family for much longer than you imagine." Robert signaled to Mrs. Lucy, who understood. She got up, went to the bedroom and returned with something in her hands. The photo of Sergeant Anthony Stone that Robert had left there earlier. "Clara, this man next to your grandfather is my brother, Edward Miller." Clara took the photo, confused. "Your grandfather and my brother served together on a peacekeeping mission 50 years ago. My brother didn't return from that mission. and when he passed away, my mother fell into such a deep depression that doctors thought she wouldn't survive." Robert paused, his voice heavy with emotion. "It was your grandfather, Clara, who saved my mother. He wrote letters for over a year, letters about Edward, about who he was, about his last moments. He treated my brother with dignity until the end, and then comforted my family when we needed it most. Those letters brought my mother back to life." Clara looked at the photo, her eyes wide. "I never got to thank your grandfather personally. When I finally had the means to look for him, he had already passed away. This debt has stayed with me all these years, haunting me. My entire fortune cannot repay what that man did for my family." "I didn't know," Clara whispered. "My mother just told me, but I still can't believe it." "Your grandfather was a hero, Clara, and you are his worthy granddaughter. But just as he left no one behind on that mission, I won't leave you behind now. His battalion's motto was this: no one gets left behind." Tears rolled down Clara's face, but she still resisted. "Even so, Mr. Miller, it's too much. The hospital costs, the medications, all of it will cost a fortune. For you, yes. For me, it's less than I spend on my company's electricity bill in a month. Clara, you're 17 and already thinking of giving up everything. Your mother is working herself to death while ill, out of pride. This needs to stop. But it's not fair. You have no obligation to us." "I have no obligation. I have a debt and a choice. I can keep accumulating money I'll never be able to spend, sleeping poorly every night, feeling empty despite everything I have, or I can do something that truly matters, help the family of the man who saved mine." Mrs. Lucy, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. "Clara, accept it. Please. Not for us, but for your grandfather. He would be happy to know that the good he did returned to his family." Clara looked at her mother, then at Robert, then at the photo in her hands. The resistance in her eyes finally began to yield. "I just want my mother to be well." "She will be," Robert promised. "I guarantee it. And I just want you to go back to studying." Mrs. Lucy held her daughter's hand. "That you have the future your grandfather always dreamed of for you." Clara finally broke down in tears again, but this time they were tears of relief, of hope, of gratitude. "All right, I accept, and I'll work the rest of my life to pay off this debt." "There's no debt between us, Clara. There's only the settling of an old debt. Now rest. Tomorrow we start putting everything back on track." In the following days, Mrs. Lucy and Clara's lives changed completely. On Wednesday morning, Robert personally took Mrs. Lucy to the London clinic. He had arranged an appointment with Dr. Francis Parker, one of the country's leading specialists in autoimmune diseases. The doctor examined Mrs. Lucy thoroughly, ordered a battery of tests, and by late afternoon already had a detailed diagnosis and an aggressive treatment plan. "Mrs. Lucy, you are in an advanced stage of lupus, but it's not irreversible," Dr. Parker explained, sitting in his modern office. "We'll start with strong immunosuppressant treatment, combined with cutting-edge biological drugs. They are expensive medications, but extremely effective." "Doctor, how much will it cost?" Mrs. Lucy asked, still not believing she was there. "You don't need to worry about that. Mr. Miller has already settled everything. Your focus now is just to recover." Mrs. Lucy looked at Robert, who was leaning against the consultation room wall. "Mr. Miller, how can I ever thank you? By getting well, that's the only thanks I want." Meanwhile, Andrew, Robert's assistant, accompanied Clara back to the state school where she studied. The principal, a grey-haired woman named Principal Martha, received them in her office with a mixture of relief and concern. "Clara, you disappeared. You vanished without explanation. We called your home numerous times. I know, Principal, and I'm very sorry, but I had to work to help my mother." Andrew intervened. "Principal Martha, I'm Andrew Campbell, assistant to businessman Robert Miller. I'm here to help regularize Clara's situation. She is an excellent student, the best in the state school system, and she shouldn't lose the year due to circumstances beyond her control." The principal sighed. "Clara truly is exceptional, but the rules are clear. She missed over 30% of her classes, and the university application deadline has already passed." "I understand the rules, Principal, But there are exceptions for special cases, aren't there? Cases of extreme family hardship. Principal Martha adjusted her glasses and looked at Clara more closely. There are exceptions, yes, but they need to be very well documented. Clara, why didn't you tell us what was happening? Because I was ashamed, Principal, Clara admitted, her voice low. Ashamed of failing, ashamed of not being able to cope with everything. You weren't failing, my dear. You were surviving. Andrew placed a thick envelope on the principal's desk. Here are all the necessary documents. Medical reports for Clara's mother, proof of income, a history of the family situation, everything certified and authenticated. Clara was working to pay for her mother's medical treatment. It's a classic case for an exception. Principal Martha scanned the documents, her expression softening with each page. Everything is in order. I can authorize Clara to take makeup exams. If she passes, she can complete the school year. She will pass, Andrew said with conviction. Clara is the best student this school has ever had. Of that I have no doubt. The principal smiled for the first time. Clara, you can take the exams next week, all in a single day. It will be tough, but I know you can handle it. Thank you, Principal. I promise I will study very hard. I know you will. Now, about the university. I've already given up on University College London, Principal. The deadline passed. Not necessarily, Andrew intervened again. Mr. Miller has contacts in the Chancellor's office. He will request a special meeting to present Clara's case. With her academic record and the special circumstances, there's a good chance we can get an exception. Clara looked at Andrew with renewed hope in her eyes. Do you really think it's possible? With Robert Miller making the request personally? I'm certain of it. And Andrew was right. 3 days later, Robert sat in the Chancellor's office at University College London with Professor Dr. Arthur Fisher, the university's Chancellor. It was an imposing room with shelves full of old books, diplomas on the walls and a solid mahogany desk. The Chancellor was a man in his 60s with completely white hair, thin-rimmed glasses, and an air of academic authority. Mr. Miller, it's an honor to receive you. I heard you made a generous donation to our new digital library. It was a pleasure to help, Professor Arthur. But today I'm here for a different reason. I've come to talk about an exceptional student who missed the application deadline due to extreme circumstances. Robert presented Clara's case in detail, omitting any element that might sound like a personal favor. He focused on the girl's academic merits, her impeccable record, and the documented circumstances that forced her to temporarily abandon her studies. The Chancellor listened attentively, leafing through the documents Robert had brought. It's truly a remarkable case. Miss Clara has exceptional grades. She never scored less than 9 out of 10 in any subject. She was first in the Young Leadership program, and it's documented here that she was working to pay for her mother's medical treatment. Exactly. A girl who sacrificed her future for the person she loves deserves a second chance, don't you think? I fully agree. But understand, Mr. Miller, there are protocols. Deadlines exist for a reason. If I make an exception for one person, others might demand the same treatment. I understand perfectly, Professor, but this isn't a case of someone who simply forgot the deadline or wasn't organized. It's the case of a young woman who was literally fighting for her family's survival. There's a difference. The Chancellor remained silent for a few moments, thoughtful. I will present the case to the University Council. I can't guarantee anything, but I will give my favorable opinion. With her record, I believe we have good chances. That's all I ask, Professor. A fair chance. She will. And Mr. Miller, if you'll allow me a personal observation, it's rare to see businessmen of your caliber get so directly involved with individual social issues. Most prefer to make donations and let institutions manage the cases. Robert smiled discreetly. Let's just say this. Case is personal to me, Professor. Very personal. While Robert fought for Clara's university spot at the hospital, Mrs. Lucy began her treatment. The first few days were difficult. The immunosuppressant medications were strong and caused nausea, dizziness, weakness. But Dr. Parker monitored every reaction, adjusted dosages, prescribed complementary medications to alleviate the side effects. It's normal to feel worse before you get better, Mrs. Lucy, he explained during his daily visits. "We are aggressively attacking the disease. Your body is responding to the treatment." Clara visited her mother every day after school. She had returned to classes with renewed energy, determined to make up for lost time. She studied for hours, redid exercises, asked teachers for help. It was as if a gigantic weight had been lifted from her shoulders and she could finally breathe. On one of these visits, she found her mother sitting on the hospital bed, looking better than she had in months. Mrs. Lucy had more color in her face, brighter eyes, a genuine smile on her lips. "Mom, you look beautiful." "I'm feeling better, daughter, much better. Dr. Parker said the treatment is working beyond expectations." Clara sat on the edge of the bed and held her mother's hand. "I was so scared, Mom, so scared of losing you." "I know, my daughter, I was too. But look at us now. You back in school, me getting the treatment I need. All thanks to Mr. Miller." "Thanks to Grandpa Anthony too," Clara corrected. "He planted the seed of this miracle 50 years ago. Your grandfather would be so proud of you, Clara. So proud." The two embraced for a few minutes in silence, simply feeling the gratitude and relief of being together, alive with hope. The week of exams arrived. Clara entered the classroom at 7 in the morning on a Friday. She had 6 exams ahead of her: English, mathematics, history, geography, physics, and chemistry, all in a single day. It was exhaustive, but she was prepared. Principal Martha had carefully organized everything. Clara would be alone in a room with proper supervision and would have the necessary time to complete each exam. At 7 in the evening, after 12 hours of intense examination, Clara finally put her pen down on the table and sighed deeply. It was done. 5 days later, the principal called her into her office. Clara entered nervously, her hands sweating. "Did I pass, Principal?" Principal Martha smiled broadly. "You passed with flying colors, my dear. You scored full marks in 4 exams and above 9 out of 10 in the other 2. You are officially approved to graduate." Clara felt tears well up immediately. "Thank you, Principal. Thank you very much." "The gratitude is mine, Clara, for having a student like you. Now go celebrate. You deserve it." The graduation ceremony was scheduled for late December. It would be held at the school itself, a simple but significant event. Clara was excited but also nervous. Mrs. Lucy had been discharged from the hospital 2 weeks prior and was home, continuing outpatient treatment. Dr. Parker guaranteed that she was in complete remission, that the disease was controlled. 2 days before the graduation, the Chancellor of University College London called Robert personally. "Mr. Miller, I have good news. The University Council approved the exception for Clara. She is officially accepted into the political science program for the next semester." Robert closed his eyes, feeling a wave of relief and joy. "Professor Arthur, I have no words to thank you. You don't need to thank me. The girl deserves it. Incidentally, I'd like to meet her personally. May I attend her graduation? It would be an honor for Clara and for me." On the night of the graduation, the school hall was decorated simply, but with affection. Blue and white balloons, the school colors, hung from the ceiling. Chairs lined up for guests, a small stage set up at the front. The graduates, all wearing traditional gowns, waited nervously backstage. Clara adjusted her mortarboard for the 10th time. She had been chosen as the valedictorian, an honor that left her simultaneously proud and terrified. In the audience, she knew her mother. Robert, Andrew, and to her surprise, the Chancellor of University College London were present. The ceremony began. The national anthem, words from the principal, presentation of diplomas. Finally, it was time for the valedictorian speech. Clara walked onto the stage, her legs trembling, her heart beating fast. She held the microphone and looked at the audience. Clara took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice came out shaky at first, but gained strength as the words flowed. "Good evening, everyone, teachers, families, classmates. I was chosen to speak on behalf of our class today, and I confess I spent days thinking about what to say. I thought about talking about the future, about dreams, about success. but I realized it would be dishonest of me to talk about individual success when I almost didn't make it here. She paused, looking directly at where her mother was seated. A few months ago, I was ready to give up everything. I dropped out of classes, threw away my university acceptance letter, worked 2 jobs simultaneously. Not because I didn't value education, but because I had something more important. My mother was ill and I needed to save her. For me, the choice was obvious. A diploma is worth nothing if you lose the people you love. Murmurs of empathy rippled through the audience. But then something extraordinary happened. Someone saw me. Someone saw beyond the exhausted girl washing dishes in the early hours. Someone decided that I deserved a second chance, and more importantly that my mother deserved to live with dignity and health. Clara looked at Robert, who was sitting next to Mrs. Lucy. That person taught me that kindness is not weakness, that helping isn't charity when it comes from a place of gratitude and respect, that sometimes the good we do in the world comes back to us in ways we never imagined, even 50 years later. Robert felt his eyes well up. My grandfather, whom I never knew, was a silent hero. He helped families in their darkest hour, expecting nothing in return. And decades later, that kindness returned to my mother and me when we needed it most. This made me understand something fundamental. We don't live alone. We are part of an invisible network of support, of small gestures that accumulate and reverberate through time. Clara looked at her classmates. So my message to all of you today isn't about being the best, the richest, or the most famous. It's about being kind, about seeing the people around you, about understanding that a simple gesture can change a destiny, about never forgetting where we came from and always reaching out to those in need. She took one last pause, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you to all the teachers who didn't give up on me. Thank you to my classmates who always supported me. Thank you to my mother, my fortress, my inspiration. And thank you to the one who taught me the greatest lesson of all, that no one gets left behind when we have the courage to care for each other. Congratulations, class of 2025. Let's change the world, one kind gesture at a time. The audience erupted in applause. People stood up, many with tears in their eyes. Mrs. Lucy wept openly, proud. Robert applauded vigorously, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in years. Even the austere Professor Arthur, the Chancellor of University College London, discreetly wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. When the ceremony ended and families gathered with the graduates for photos and hugs, Professor Arthur approached Clara. Miss Clara, I am Arthur Fisher, Chancellor of University College London. Your speech was remarkable, sincere, profound, inspiring. You have a brilliant future in politics. Thank you, Professor. It's an honor to meet you. The honor is mine, and I have a proposal for you. In addition to the regular spot in the political science course, I would like to invite you to be part of a special mentorship program we offer to exceptional students. You will work directly with renowned professors, have access to internships in government bodies and international organizations. What do you think? Clara looked at Robert and her mother, seeking confirmation. Both nodded, smiling. I accept, Professor, with great pride. In the following days, while Clara prepared for her move to the University College London campus, which was in another region of London, Robert had an important conversation with Mrs. Lucy. He called her for coffee at the mansion, not as employer and employee, but as friends. Mrs. Lucy, I need to talk about your future. My future, Mr. Miller? Yes. You are recovered, healthy. And I know you are the kind of person who needs to feel useful, who needs to work to feel worthy. Mrs. Lucy nodded, a little concerned about the direction of the conversation. But I don't want you to go back to working as a housekeeper. Not because you're not excellent at what you do, but because I have something better in mind. He placed an official document on the table. I created a charitable fund in memory of my mother, Helen Miller. Its focus is to help families of military veterans who are experiencing difficulties, whether in health, education, or basic needs. It's a way to honor her memory and your father's. Mrs. Lucy looked at the document, confused. It's very beautiful, Mr. Miller, but what does this have to do with me? Everything, because I want you to be the administrator of this fund. Me? "But sir, I don't have the training for that. I'm a housekeeper." "You are much more than that, Mrs. Lucy. You are someone who knows what it's like to struggle, what it's like to need help, what it's like to be too proud to ask. You can identify who truly needs help. You can separate urgent cases from less serious ones. And most importantly, you can do it with empathy and respect. But the administrative part, the documents, the money, you'll have a team to help you with that. Accountants, lawyers, social workers. But the final decision on who to help and how to help will always be yours. And the salary is 3 times what you earned as a housekeeper." Mrs. Lucy fell silent, processing the proposal. Tears began to roll down her face. "Mr. Miller, you are giving me a purpose. It's not just a job. It's a reason to live." "Exactly. To transform the pain you went through into help for others, to create a legacy, to honor your father." "I accept. With all my heart, I accept." On the day of Clara's departure for the university campus, Robert insisted on taking her personally. She had only 2 suitcases with clothes and books, but he made sure to stop at the electronics store first. "Mr. Miller, where are we going? The campus is on the other side." "I know, but first we have to make a stop." Half an hour later, they left the store with 2 large bags. Inside them, a state-of-the-art laptop, a tablet, professional headphones, and some accessories. "Mr. Miller, this is too much. Clara, you're going to study politics. You'll need to do research, write papers, attend online classes. These tools aren't a luxury, they're a necessity. Accept it and don't argue." Clara smiled, finally accepting that resistance was useless when Robert decided something. When they arrived at the student dormitory, a modern building on campus, Robert helped Clara carry her suitcases up to her room on the 3rd floor. It was a small but cozy space, which she would share with another student. It had 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared wardrobe, and a window overlooking the central campus courtyard. Clara began to unpack her things, but Robert called her. "Wait, I have one more thing for you." He took a yellowed envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket. Inside it, the old photograph Clara had now seen several times. Sergeant Anthony Stone and Edward Miller, side by side, in uniform, smiling at the camera. "This photo belongs to you now, Clara. You are the guardian of the legacy of these 2 men. Your grandfather, who saved my family with his kindness, and my brother, who taught your grandfather the meaning of camaraderie. They are together in this photo because they were brothers in arms. And now we are family, too." Clara took the photo with reverence, holding it like the treasure it was. "Thank you, Mr. Miller, for everything, for seeing me when I was invisible, for saving my mother, for giving me a future. I promise I will honor that trust. I know you will. You have your grandfather's strength and your mother's determination. The world needs people like you." They embraced, a long and sincere hug. When they separated, Clara had tears in her eyes but a radiant smile on her face. "Now go, study, learn, grow, and when you're ready to change the world, I'll be in the front row to applaud." Robert went down the stairs and returned to his car. From the parking lot, he looked up and saw Clara waving from her room window. He waved back, feeling a strange but wonderful sensation in his chest. Peace. For the first time in years, decades perhaps, Robert felt genuine peace. The insomnia that haunted him had disappeared. The sense of emptiness that his fortune had never managed to fill was finally filled. He had paid the debt to the past by investing in Clara and Mrs. Lucy's future. He had honored the memory of his mother and his brother in the most beautiful way possible, by helping those in need. That night, back in the silent mansion, Robert dined alone as he always did. But this time he didn't feel lonely. He went up to his room at 10 at night, lay down on the king-size bed and turned off the light. And he slept. Deeply, peacefully, for the first time in years. He dreamed of Edward, young and smiling. He dreamed of Sergeant Anthony, writing letters by the light of a lantern. He dreamed of Clara speaking on a grand stage changing the world. And he dreamed of his mother, Helen, smiling at him and saying she was proud. When he woke up the next morning to the first rays of sun, Robert felt renewed. He had discovered something all his money could never buy. Purpose. True wealth was not in his bank account, but in the lives he had touched, in the stories he had helped rewrite. 3 months later, Robert received a letter. It was from Clara, handwritten with careful penmanship. Dear Robert, today I had my first political theory class. The professor spoke about what motivates people to serve the common good. I thought of you, of my grandfather, of my mother, people who put others before themselves. I want you to know that I am studying very hard and that every page I read, every concept I learn, is fueled by the gratitude I feel. My mother is wonderful in her new job. She tells me about the families she is helping, and I see in her eyes the same light I saw in Grandpa Anthony's eyes in the photos. The legacy continues. I am sending a photo of myself on campus with this letter. I want you to keep it, just as you kept the photo of Grandpa and Uncle Edward. One day, when I make a difference in the world, you can look at this photo and know that you were a fundamental part of this story. With love and eternal gratitude, Clara. Robert placed the letter and the photo in a special frame in his office, next to the old photo of the 2 soldiers. 3 generations, 3 stories connected by kindness, sacrifice, and love. And so, the 50-year debt was finally paid. Not with money, but with something far more valuable. Hope, dignity, and the chance of a brilliant future for those who deserved it. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Robert, Mrs. Lucy, and Clara has touched your hearts as deeply as it touched ours in telling it. Stories like this remind us that true wealth lies in seeing others, in reaching out when someone needs help, and in understanding that small acts of kindness can echo through generations. If this narrative resonated with you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel to continue this emotional journey with us. Don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that we are never alone on this journey. Every day we bring new stories that celebrate the best of humanity. Let us know in the comments which part of the story moved you the most. Your participation is fundamental to our community. Until the next story, and remember, no one gets left behind when we have the courage to care for each other.